There we go. There's where I was going. Make sure everything was working. I was muted, but thank you. Welcome. Jump in the comments so that I know that, one, you can actually hear me now, and two, let me know where you're tuning in from. Um, I'd love to know where you are. I'm really excited to be here presenting this webinar. This is the exact same webinar I presented in November, December last year, and everybody loved it so much that we've decided to come back and do it again. So today I'm going to be presenting how you find a great investment property. So let me know in the chat. I can see we got Steve from Perth, Australia. We've got Tim. We've got Natalia. Thanks, everyone. Jump in there. This works so much better when I can see your comments, when I can feed off your energy, and that bit of a performing seal. More energy you give, more I get involved in, the more fun we all have. Today, the goal is for this presentation to be approximately 1 hour. I am going to be going at a super fast pace, so make sure you do have pen and paper handy. I'm here as a mentor with Wealth Mentor. We are based here in Auckland, 501 Pownell Road. That's where I'm doing this webinar from today. Just in case you ever wanted to pop by for a coffee, although to be honest, we're not in the office too much. Wealth Mentor, we've been in a large number of media, from the Property Investor magazine to the newspapers. We've been out there. I even appeared on the cover of the Property Investor magazine once, many moons ago, when I had this dirty little slug of a goatee on my chin. But luckily, time has passed, and maybe my fashion sense has caught up as well. A little bit about me. I'm an investor myself. I am a mentor, bit of a futurist, especially in the property space, how emerging trends and technology are going to affect real estate. Not that we'll talk about that today. That's a topic for another time. An entrepreneur and an adventurer. I love doing adventures, especially if it involves running stupidly long distances. I see it more as challenging my mind. And welcome Farah from Sydney. So I'm also an author. I've written 2 books in my life. The Freedom Investor Blueprint did get #1 in 4 different countries in Amazon, as well as The Future of Property, where I laid out my vision of where I see technology, trends, etc., how that's going to affect property. But today we're here to talk about, how do you identify a good deal? Now, there are a lot of people selling deals out there at the moment. You've probably seen them all the time. You see them on TradeMe, on realestate.co.nz, or whatever platform you're using. Great deal, good deal, buy this, it's bound to do wonders. But how do we actually know if it's a good deal or if it's just an agent trying to sell us? Well, today I'm going to share with you how we do that. Not all properties were created equal. So today we're going to go through what numbers you really need to know before you buy an investment property. We're going to look at new builds versus existing properties and weigh up the difference between the two, or just 2 properties that I found, to see which one actually stacks up better. We're going to look at ways that you can make your money work harder so that you don't have to. We're going to look at how tax actually affects your numbers. And we're going to talk about the importance of education and being educated, especially when you're spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to buy investment properties. At the very end, I am going to offer you an opportunity to join us on the Cash Flow Masterclass, where we take a lot of these principles that I'm going to be going through today and dive much deeper. Obviously, there's only so much detail I can go into on a 1-hour webinar, but the actual cash flow masterclass is a 3-day program, with our next one being the 11th, 12th, and 13th of February. But if you stay till the end, I'll share more details on that then. I think this is one of the key things and probably the reason why you're here. In fact, jump into the chat and let me know, why are you here? What is it you most want to learn out of this webinar? For me, it's this Warren Buffett quote here, right? If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. And what better asset to use in order to make money while you sleep than property? It's highly leverageable, great capital appreciation. Every single person I know lives in a house, therefore you know it's in high demand. And so that's one of the reasons why I really love property. In fact, this was my first property. And this is where I say not all houses were created equal when it comes to property investment in particular. As a house, as a home, this was a fantastic property. My grandparents used to live in it. It was newly built when they bought it. Everything you'd want, right? However, as I found out the hard way, this was a terrible investment. Now, I bought this property in 2011 or 2012, right off the back. No, it was earlier than that. It was 2009. And it was right off the back of the global financial crisis. And what's more, this property is in Paihia, Bay of Islands. So tourist town, right? Tourist areas got hit hardest during the GFC. So what I discovered, I thought I was doing the right thing. I was 22 years old. I'd been told buy a house, because houses always go up in value, right? Buy a house, it'll go up in value. And at 22 years old, I did that. I thought I was the man, until I went to a seminar, a webinar just like this, and I actually learned how to do the numbers on properties. This property was negatively geared. That meant it cost me money in order to own it. I had to top it up from my own hard-earned money, right? What was Warren Buffett saying? If you're not making money while you sleep, I was even worse. I was spending money while I slept, right? It wasn't bad enough that this was negatively geared, but it was also going down in value. So I got the double whammy, right? Now, I then went and got educated and I turned it around, right? So this was one of the next properties I bought. This was a home and income property, 2 income streams for only a little bit more than what I paid for my first property. But at this point, I was educated. This property made me money. This property I bought in an area that was already increasing in value. That meant that, that I just had to sit and wait, and the property was going to go up in value too. Not only that, I bought a dunga, which meant I could actually add instant value to the property by renovating. So these are all some tips that you can start writing down right now, and I hope you're taking notes. Those key tips: do not buy a negatively geared property, do not buy in a market which is going down, and do add value to a property when you can. And we'll touch on that a little bit later, where I'll show you the numbers behind a couple of example properties, real life properties. Unfortunately, I didn't buy them, but real life properties, and I'll show you how extreme the numbers can be simply by focusing in on that. So I'm going to be working you through 3 key steps on this webinar. And the very first key is working towards a set goal. Too many investors I know go out there and they'll buy a property with absolute no idea what they want out of it. So knowing what you want, what is your goal? What do you want the property to give you? Is it passive cash flow? Is it equity? Is it the ability to subdivide or build another property on the back? Do you want to rent by the room? Knowing what you want from the start is absolutely key in order to be successful in property. The key that I use is strategy area property. Write that down. Strategy area property in that order. So let's take a look at strategy. What is your strategy? Are you looking to buy and hold? Are you looking to flip? Are you looking to develop? What is the strategy you are going to utilize? That's going to depend on what sort of entity or structure you set up, but it's also going to affect where you purchase, which is where we come into the next step, which is area. Knowing why you want to buy, what sort of property you're going to try and buy, and how that strategy is going to work in with your goals means you can then narrow down in an area where you know your strategy is going to work. For example, if I wanted to buy a super high cash flowing property, I'm probably not going to buy anywhere near the blue chip suburbs in and around the CBD. Here in Auckland, we're talking Remuera, Epsom. I'm not going to buy a high cash flowing property in that area, am I? Just the same as I'm not going to buy an apartment if I'm looking to develop or if I'm looking to subdivide, because it's just not what you do. So there is an area where your strategy is going to work. And that's why we go in this order: strategy, area, property. So once you have that strategy, once you've narrowed down where your area is, and that's not what we're going to focus on today, then you find the property. The worst thing you could be doing is jumping on TradeMe, jumping on realestate.co.nz and looking at every single property in New Zealand. Deep dive in on the area that works for you and then look for the exact property that is going to fit your strategy. This is where you can start using the platform's filters in order to divide them out. Are you looking for a multi-income? Are you looking for a set price? Are you working out the yield of the property and then using the cap rate to work out how much you should be paying for the property? Don't worry if you don't understand what I just said. I'm about to explain it all. Strategy, area, property. That is the very first thing you need to focus on. So I hope you've written that down. Now we come into the numbers. This is the most exciting part. And to be honest, I'm probably going to spend a good 45 minutes or so walking you through the numbers. Feel free to jump in the chat at any point. Help me as we work out the numbers. The more you do them, the better you're going to be. So let's walk through it. One of the most important things when it comes to identifying a good investment property is actually knowing what metrics you need to know in order to judge if it's a good property. The property side, a good investment ultimately comes down to the numbers. Remember, you don't buy on emotion, you buy on the numbers. So, what key metrics do you even need to know? Well, the first is gross yield. Now, gross yield is simply how does the rent compare to the purchase price? The reason why this is important is two reasons. The first is so that you can compare comparable properties within an area. And the second is so that you can compare the gross yield against the mortgage interest rate. You know that if the mortgage interest rate is 5% and your gross yield is 4%, you have a negatively geared property. You know that if the mortgage interest rate is 5% and your gross yield is more like 8 to 10%, then that is a good indication that your property is going to be cash flow positive. That is going to put cash in your pocket, which is ultimately what we want. So let's take a look at how we actually work out a gross yield. A gross yield, simply take the annual rent, that is the weekly rent, times 52, divide it by the purchase price, and times it by 100. Let's have a look at a couple of examples. So here we have 3 houses. The first house is a blue house. And if I was to buy that property for $360,000, knowing that it was being rented for $720 per week, then I could simply work out what the gross yield is. 720 times 52 divided by 360,000 times 100 would give me 10.4%. The pink house, 300,000 with a weekly rent of 270. Put the numbers in. Are you getting the same numbers that I've got? Or have I made a mistake somewhere? What does everyone get for the pink house? 270 times 52 divided by 300,000. Do we all get 4.7%? I hope so. And then finally, the greenhouse, a purchase price of $380,000, weekly rent of $470 per week. That would give you a gross yield of 6.4%. Now, these aren't real houses, obviously. These are just numbers that I've made up as a bit of a maths exercise to get you practicing, to get you in the habit of working out gross yields on different properties so that you can go out there and look at properties on the internet and work out the gross yield almost instantly. A little trick on how you do that is if the weekly rent is double the purchase price, as you can see with the 720 and the 360, that would be 10%. If the weekly rent is around about the same as the purchase price, and I mean that first number, 520,000, it's going to be around about 5%. And of course, if the weekly rent is half, then it's going to be about 2.5%. That's how I'm able to work out yields in my head so quickly. I might not be exact, but I can get to the rough roundabout gross yield there. So then once we've worked out gross yield, that's going to give us an indication of which properties we should be looking at, and does this property even cash flow? Remember, it won't tell you what the cash flow is, but it will give us a good indication that this property is worth looking into further. So for example, out of our three we've just had, I would definitely be wanting to look into the blue house a little bit further. Once I've identified that, we're going to work out cash flow. How much cash actually goes into your pocket once you've paid all the expenses? Now, working out cash flow in property is no different to working out cash flow in any other business. We're going to take our income, we're going to minus our expenses, and that is going to give us our cash flow. Now, in this case, we're working off cash flow as being rent, mortgage, maintenance, rates, management, repairs. I'd also throw tax in there. And that is going to give you the cash flow. How much cash flow does this property give after all of these expenses? And then we have return on investment. Now, in my opinion, this is the most important equation. So write this down, ROI, return on investment. How hard is your money actually working? And I think you'd be really surprised. This is very different to cash flow, and this is very different to gross yield, my absolute favorite. The way you work out return on investment is you simply take the return, that is the actual cash that you get back, the actual cash that has gone in your pocket, and you divide it by your investment. That is the actual cash that you put into the investment. So if you buy a $500,000 property, but you only put $100,000 in, your investment is $100,000, not the full 500,000. Make sense? Perfect. So you're going to take the return, you're going to divide it by your investment, and you're going to multiply it by 100. So let's run some numbers. These are two real life properties Like I said, they're both on the market in December. One of them is still on the market. So let's run the numbers and see which one actually stacks up better when we run the numbers. So this is property number 1, 10 Maple Street in Levin. Levin is an area down in the Horowhenua area just north of Wellington that is experiencing pretty good growth at the moment. And a lot of that is going to be because of the Transmission Gully motorway, which has been put up that entire Kapiti Coast there. So if we come over to my internet screen, you can see this is the listing here. It's with professionals being marketed here. Somewhere, I'm sure it says, if you would like to make your home ownership or investment dream a reality, come purchase off the plans today. So they're calling this a dream investment, right? So we've got old Shano here. He's selling it. We can have a look through the property. Anything interesting here? To me, this looks like your stock standard townhouse. Obviously, these are artists' impressions, but it looks nice enough. So 550,000, is that a good deal? Is that not a bad deal? Let me know in the comments what you think. Is this a good deal or a bad deal? Obviously, being a brand new build, you can offset your tax against it, which means you're going to pay less tax. Well, you're just going to be able to claim the interest on it. But yeah, what do we think? Good deal or bad deal? And while you're letting me know that, I'm going to come to property number 2. So this property, as you can see, it just sold in December. I really hope someone did buy this off the back of my webinar, because I really like this little property. Absolute dunger. Here we can see, seen better days. Love that carpet. Whew. Wouldn't even stick my grandmother in that house, but hey. Someone's got to live in these, right? And where there's this, ooh, look at all that black mold on the ceiling. Smells like mold. I say smells like opportunity. So this property, as we come back to my notes, this is the other property we're comparing it against. So I'll get to it in a minute. So if we come back to Maple Street, purchase price $550,000 with a rent of $410 per week. So if we work out a gross yield, that gives us a 3.9% gross yield. Is that good? Is that bad? I'll leave that up to you to decide. It's just an indicator. But of course, you can always go check out interest.co.nz to see what current mortgage rates are, whether that's above, below, or about even with them. But as we start to work out whether this property will cash flow or not. Now, I put a couple of notes in there as to how I worked out what this property would cash flow. And there's a reason for that. That's because this property is a new build, and therefore it has different rules applied to it than an existing property, because the government wants us out developing and building new houses. So what that means is that an investor could potentially borrow up to 90%, and they could be getting cheaper interest at around about 2%. So with all that in mind, and taking into account tax at 33%, which is what you'd pay in a trust, this property would give a net cash flow of $178 per month. Whoop, 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 whoop. Cha-ching! That's what? That's like a donut and a coffee nearly every single day for every month, isn't it? Who's excited by that? Who likes a donut and a coffee paid to you by the tenants of your Maple Street property? We'll see. Forget the donut. I'm on a diet. Let's go with a kombucha and I don't know. Let's leave this metaphor alone. So $178 per month. Now, we don't know if that's good or not so good yet, because we need to work out what the ROI is. Because remember, that is the key number, the key equation that you need to do. So, is it good? Is it bad? When I worked this out, it came to an ROI of 3.9%. Now, funnily enough, that's the exact same as what the gross yield is. That is not normal, they don't sync up like that. They just happen to coincidentally be the same number. So 3.9% ROI. That means that every dollar you have is invested in this property is making you 3.9 cents per year. Now, is that good or is that bad? That ultimately comes down to your definition of good or bad, right? Now, the way I like to test it is, what is the bank interest rate? If I was to put my money into a term deposit or a savings account with the bank, how much are they going to pay me on it? So again, if you go to interest.co.nz, and you can check out, actually, let's do that. Let's come over. And if we type in interest.co.nz and we come down to saving here, we can see term deposits 1 to 5 years. ANZ will pay me 3% up to 5 years. China Construction Bank, 3.4. Who's that? Bank of China, 3.3, 2.5s. So I know that if I lock my money up for 5 years, I can get between 2.5 and 3%. So is 3.9 a good deal? I would argue no. I could probably just go put my money in the bank, get very similar with no risk, right? With very little to no risk. They say putting money in the bank is the lowest risk investment you can have, which is probably why it pays so bad. But ultimately, that is how I like to weigh up what is a good investment. What can I get elsewhere? And am I satisfied with how secure, how much risk is involved in order to earn that? So 3.9%, not amazing, but hey, at least it's positive, unlike the first property I ever bought, right? So now let's come over to Shamrock. Now this property was priced between 415 to 450,000. I don't know what it ended up selling for, but I believe this property was actually worth about 430,000. And having talked to the agent, I think I could have got it for that. So going forward, the numbers I have used in this equation are based off purchasing it for 430,000. Now there's another key component here, and that's that the property rents for, or could be rented for, $500 per week. Now, obviously it's in a terrible state, but for the sake of doing the numbers, just run with me. So breaking it down, you'll notice my interest rates for the mortgage costs have changed. Because this property is an existing property, I'm not able to get 90% lending. I have to buy it at about 60% LVR, 40% deposit. And my interest is much higher too. My interest is double because it's not a new build. So that affects my mortgage costs. Even though the property is cheaper, I actually pay more in mortgage. Interesting, hey? But ultimately, when we work through it all, I come out with roughly the same number. Look at how much tax I pay though. I pay $498 tax on $680 cash profit. And the key thing here is, remember March last year when the government removed interest deductibility on houses, existing houses, this is the effect that we start to see. We see it on the cash flow. This property, however, is still cash flow positive. It's going to put $182 in your pocket every month. So that is still a donut and a coffee every single morning for the rest of your life, courtesy of your tenants. But is it a good deal? Because your deposit on this is so much higher, the ROI actually shrinks significantly. Look at that. The ROI on this, you're going to bring about approximately $2,184 into your pocket every single year. However, you invested $166,000 in order to get that $2,184. That gives you a return on investment of 1.3%. Who's excited by that? I mean, we've already looked at the numbers on interest.co.nz, right? We know that we could literally just put our money in the bank and get double that. So what's the message that I'm trying to give you? Right now is to just do your numbers, right? See how good it is. See how good the numbers stack up. And I'm going to show you how to increase that significantly, because I still think that Shamrock deal is far better despite what those initial numbers look like. So given those initial numbers, who would be interested in buying Mabel and who would be interested in buying Shamrock? Just want to know. Let me know in the chats. Are you team Mabel or are you team Shamrock? And why? If we simply focused on buying the property, actually, yeah, no, I won't complicate things any further. Are you team Mabel? Are you team Shamrock? I'd love to know. And I'll start jumping into why me personally, I'm on team Shamrock, because there's so much upside potential. And this is where thinking differently. This is where this whole concept of buying as if property prices will never increase will make you so much money. So write that down. Buy as if property prices will never, ever increase. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, don't simply buy relying on capital gain. Because if we compare these two properties, Maple Street, the only way you can make money out of Maple Street is with that little bit, that tiny little bit of cash flow, and hoping that the property is going to go up in value. But let me hear you. Are you a buy and hope investor? No, you're not, right? You're a calculated investor. You know that if you come in and you add value to this property, just like I did, not my first deal. My first property was very much a Mabel. My second property, though, now that was a Shamrock, and I'll show you why, right? Let's have a look at what you could do to Shamrock. First things first, the property obviously has scope in order to renovate. I mean, I'm no interior designer, but I'm pretty sure this has never been in vogue. Look at that. Nobody wants to sit there in this ugly house, right? Nobody wants to have breakfast there unless they absolutely have to. So we could do a bit of a renovation here. So what have we got? We've got new kitchen. I don't even know what that floor is. It's been just jibbed and left there. We've got carpet. We've got ceiling. Where was our black mold room? Laundry. Nobody needs a laundry that big anymore unless you've got 20 children. What else have we got? Bathroom. Let's just give it a complete new bathroom given the looks of that. And of course, we've got black mold on the ceilings, wallpaper. So I've budgeted And my expectations are that you could spend around about $50,000 renovating this property. But here's the thing, right? You spend $50,000 renovating this property. So you bought it, okay, here I've actually used 415 for the numbers, sorry. So if you bought it for 415 and you spend $50,000 on it, then you would have 465,000 in the deal. But I talked to the agent, and this property after renovating would be worth 650,000 all day, any day of the week. It would also increase the rent by $60 per week. So now you've been able to manipulate the numbers, right, in order to increase them. So now when we look at cash flow, we're coming out more like $340 per month cash flow. Cha-ching, that's like now 2 donuts and 2 coffees every single day for the rest of your life. Now, your life might be shortened if you're eating 2 donuts and 2 coffees every day, but at least it's paid for by the tenant, right? In fact, maybe just don't buy the donuts and coffees. Invest your money somewhere more wisely. $340 per month. But look what happens when we do the cash flow, the ROI, sorry. Look what happens when we do the ROI. Your annual cash return is still only 1.9% because you put extra cash in. You put that extra 50,000. So yes, it has increased from the 1.3% it was before, but it's not amazing as it could be. However, look at the equity. The return on investment you have created in equity is a whopping 85.6%. 85.6. Who would love to get an 85.6% return on their money? Pretty sweet, hey? And these are deals out there in the market at the moment. As you've seen, this property only sold in December, 1 month ago. So these deals are out there where you can be adding this much value to the property. And this is where I start talking about strategy. If you had the strategy with Mabel that you were going to buy it, you're going to sit on your 180-ish per month and hope like how the property is going to go up, then yeah, Mabel would probably work for you. But if you wanted much better returns, then I would be saying Shamrock is definitely stacking up a lot better than what Mabel was. But wait, there's more. Another Wealth Mentor top tip, write this down. We develop to increase both the rent and the value. And once you've developed, refinance your money back out. How does that work? Well, let me show you. Here we go with another opportunity, right? This property was on big enough land that you could have either moved the existing house to the back and moved a relocatable to the front, or you could have, sorry, in this case, transportable. Difference between a relocatable and transportable. Transportable is a brand new house built in a factory, transported to site. Relocatable is an existing house relocated from someone else's site onto yours. So let's run through the numbers, because this property could have been subdivided, and it could have been subdivided one of 2 ways. The first way was to move the existing house to the back of the site, of which I've put around about $30,000 for that relocation. You'd then be able to put another property on the front, another house on the front, which would be around about $200,000 if you transported it in. We've still got the $50,000 renovation budget for the existing house and around about $100,000 budgeted in order to subdivide to put it on its own title. The other option you have is this property could actually be developed into 3 townhouse sites. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's look at this opportunity. And if you were to take this opportunity in order to develop, what would that do to the numbers? Well, by now, you are 795,000 in. And that's the total amount you've spent on buying a property, renovating a property, subdividing a property, transporting another home. But here's the thing. Your new valuation would be $1.2 million. And that's made up of the new property being worth 650,000 and the old property, renovated property, being worth 550. Notice that the lack of land or the lack of the bigger section actually doesn't make a difference to the end value. That's something we're really noticing right now. That you can buy a full-size section, subdivide into 2, and the original house is still going to be worth exactly the same as what you paid for it. Crazy, crazy situation. Will this be around forever? No, it won't be. But this is a strategy that's working today. And this is why we talk about strategies and we talk about what works in the market today. Then the rents would be approximately $560 per week for the original house because that is a 4-bedroom, and then around about $410 per week for the new house, which would have been a 2-bedroom, simply because of size and how I worked out my numbers. Now, what is this going to do to our key equations? What do you think? Good, bad, exciting, not exciting? I mean, this is the build-up, right? So you know that it's going to be exciting. So let's see just how exciting it is. Here's the thing, right? You can actually take that new valuation to the bank and you can say, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Banker. My property is now worth 1.2 million. If you will lend at that same 60%, then that 60% equals 720,000. So that means, remember, you're 795,000 in. That means that the bank will actually refinance you out, give you back $255,000 cash back into your pocket, ready to go on the next deal, and you only have 75,000 of your original investment left in the deal. Cha-ching. Who likes the idea of that? Who would love the idea of being able to buy a property, adding value to it, getting it revalued, and then actually being able to get a large chunk, if not all, of your original investment back in your pocket, giving you the deposit, giving you the money to go and buy another property? Hell yeah, right? Cha-ching. But this is where it really starts to get interesting. Look at the cash flow on this property at the moment. Now, I'm still working off 60% LVR just because that's what I was originally doing. But here's the thing. If you look at my, my little asterisk notes, because you now have 2 codes of compliance having subdivided this property, both properties are now considered new builds, and therefore you can claim the interest deductibility. Therefore, your tax is nowhere near as extreme as it was before. And so when we break it all down, this property is now cash flowing you $1,149 per month. That's a lot of donuts. I mean, that's basically donuts and insurance paid for the rest of, probably gym too. You'd need gym if you were eating that many donuts. But that is a lot of money, right? What were we talking about? Warren Buffett getting paid in your sleep. That's $1,000, $1,149 in your pocket every single month whilst you sleep. No more work necessary. Again, is this a good deal? Is this a bad deal? Well, we don't know yet, do we? We don't know until we do that key equation. What is it? What's the key equation? What is my favorite equation? That is ROI. So let's bring it on. This property is going to give you $13,788 cash in your bank. You have had a $405,000 cha-ching increase in equity on this property. And you only have $75,000 of your initial cash investment left in this property. So when I run the numbers now, 13,788 divided by 75,000 times 100, I come up with an 18.4% cash on cash return on investment. Now we're talking. Now we're getting excited, right? Let me know in the comments, who is excited by an 18.4% cash on cash return? That sure as hell beats that 1 point something Mabel was offering. But get the next one, right? Leaving $75,000 in, you have actually increased the value of the property by $405,000, which gives you a 540% return on investment when it comes to equity increase. So yeah, pretty exciting, I'd be saying. And this is simply the power of knowing your numbers and knowing how to build them into the equations. Now, obviously, there's only so much that I can teach in a 1 hour time block, but I hope you've gotten a lot of value on that, because it brings me to point number 3. Before I got educated, I thought I had a good deal, right? It had brick and tile. That's what they said. I didn't understand any of the equations. I didn't understand the numbers. Well, now you do. Now you understand the numbers. You know how to do them. It's time to get educated. This is Torb. He's a Swedish guy living in Adelaide, and he came through our cash flow masterclass back in July 2018. And since then, he's bought around about 15 properties with an annual cash flow of 150,000. His total purchase price is around about 3.5 million, and the current value sits at $5 million portfolio, right? So that's about $1.5 million in equity, 1.5 million in net worth that he's actually created. He's kept a spreadsheet of every single property that he owns. And you can see every single property there, how much it's cash flowing, how much it costs him, what his gross yield is, and ultimately how much money he's made property by property. Most people think that property is about houses, but the reality is not. It's actually all about your thinking. And this is one of those quotes that I really do absolutely love. I changed my thinking and it changed my life. Most people don't need houses right now. They need to change their thinking. They need to learn how to think differently. And that's why I'd love to invite you all to join us at our next Cash Flow Masterclass, where we're going to spend 3 full days diving into properties just like this one, real life deals, my deals, Jono's deals, many of the Wealth Mentor team and family and students deals, to show you exactly how to invest in property and to help you get the goals you want to achieve. Obviously, there's only so much I can do on a 1 hour webinar. This is 3 full days. It's completely virtual, means you can stream right into your living room. It's all based off the cash flow quadrant formula. Too many people are sitting on the left-hand side of the quadrant in the E, employee, not enough people thinking outside the box, thinking right-hand side of the quadrant as a business owner, as an investor. This is really where we talk about changing your thinking. Remember, we have trained thousands of people through this program, helping them to create financial freedom. On the very first day of Cashflow Masterclass, we're going to do a market analysis. Where is the market right now? We're going to talk through the 8 buying rules that you need to implement for every single deal that you buy. We're going to work with you to start thinking like a professional investor, to break down the numbers just as I have, rather than being a buy and hope investor. Day 2, we're going to start talking about how you finance deals, including little to no money down ways, how you use other people's money, and how you actually work out cash flow. We even play an absolutely fantastic game. I'm not going to give away any hints, but it's my favorite part of the entire Cashflow Masterclass. It's a real eye-opener. And then day 3 is really focused around how you build your property investment business, where we're talking tax. How does tax affect you, depending on what your structure is, which part of the world you're in? We even give you personal strategy sessions, one-on-one with a mentor, to walk through what your strategy is, what's going to work for you. We talk about developments. If you want to know how you would go about doing a development, just as I said, then that is your chance to learn how. I'd mentioned that Shamrock could have actually been developed into 3 townhouses. I don't have time to run the numbers today, but you're going to learn exactly how our students and how our mentors have done this in real life, where they're essentially getting houses for free. That's infinite returns on investments. This is Kaz and Justin. They started their journey at the beginning of 2019. Within a year and a half, they were able to quit their jobs, moved over to Aussie to be closer to Kaz's family, and they've now even started their own family. This is how quickly you can achieve your goals. You can have what you're looking for by investing in cash flow positive properties and by following the Wealth Mentor formula. Belinda and Steve, opposite way around, Aussies who have moved to New Zealand simply because the investing conditions were so good here. Again, they've been able to create their freedom. Belinda, they now live in Raglan, where Belinda spends most of her days surfing or foiling, and they've been able to start their family because of it. And Belinda will actually be showing up on the Cashflow Masterclass in order to teach as well. We've had over 10,000 people come through Cashflow Masterclass, so we know what we do works. It's 3 full days dedicated to you and your wealth in order to hit your dreams, where you're going to work through multiple different property strategies and how you can create wealth through property. The time is now. You need to claim your place. I've dropped that link into the chat. Jump on there and start registering. When this was a live event, we were selling this $3,500 all day, every day. We're including the one-on-one strategy consultation valued at $500, absolutely free. We've got the online education portal. We're throwing that in for free. Lifetime event support, throwing that in for free. And a workbook, as well as a strategy call before you start the program, absolutely free. Today, selling at $14.97. As I said, we used to sell this when we're doing this live, $3,500. So that's a massive discount. But wait, there is more. No, it's not steak knives, but of course, everything is better with a friend. If you've got, we call it the 3Bs, bed, business, or blood, whatever the partner is, whatever the friend is, we think you should be investing with them. Thanks to everyone. I can see a couple of you have already purchased. I can't wait to see you on the weekend. But yes, that's right. You then get 2 tickets valued $7,000 for the low price of $1,497. Now, I actually created these slides, and then Jono, who is the managing director of Wealth Mentor, came to me with something absolutely crazy. And he said, Kyron, we want to give him a special offer. Because it's the start of 2020, because we've had an absolute shit 2 years, because we know that property is getting out of reach for a lot of people, we want to help out everyone. If you put in special offer 195, then we'll actually drop that price to $195. Jono, if you're listening, I still can't believe you're doing that. I think you're absolutely mad. But for every one of you on this webinar, take advantage of it while Jono is having maybe a momentary lapse in his sanity by selling it for so cheap. But that is essentially the amazing discount that we are offering today. So put that special offer in there, special offer 195 into the discount code area. Just to repeat, our next masterclass starts on the 11th of February. If you can't make those dates, that's not a problem. Simply book the price, book it while it's at this stupidly low price, and then talk with the office, send an email, say that you can't make the February dates, and they'll work with you to book you into a future event. We don't know when the next one is yet, but they will be able to help you to get registered for a future one if you want to take advantage of that low price. As we start approaching the end of the hour, you have a choice, right? We all have that choice. Do we want to go left? Do we want to go right? Do we want to go left along with everybody else? Do we want to keep being buy and hope investors buying Mabels? Or do we want to make a different decision? Do we want to take charge of our financial future? Do we want to go ahead and achieve all our goals? At 195, you can't afford not to, I'd say. There really is no downside. We've got tons of testimonials. Everyone loves it, but you basically have 2 options right now. You can do nothing. You can have and do what you've always done, or you can take action, you can invest in yourself, and you can grow. I would say $195 is a very small price to pay, given you have access to us live. It's digital, it's virtual, but we're all here live on the other side of the screen, talking one-on-one strategy consultations. It's a no-brainer in my opinion. But your time starts now as it's slipping away. With all that being said, I promised you I'd only take 1 hour of your time, and that brings us perfectly to the hour. So thank you so much to everybody who has already signed up. For those of you who signed up at that higher price, that $1,500 price, I've already got the team working to refund you the difference because, you know, fair is fair, and we love rewarding people who take action. With all that being said, I'm going to finish up now. Thank you so much, everyone. I love the chat and the comments. I love being able to come in and teach and hopefully change your minds. Let me know in the comments what the biggest takeaway was, and I'm going to finish this up, but I will stay in the background in order to maybe stay in the chat a little bit longer if anyone's got any questions, anything like that. Thank you, team, and we'll see you at the Cashflow Masterclass.